Hello, this is Nathan Cock once again. Last year I posted a video about my life, I guess, or my story, my life story behind the smile. Nearly a whole entire year later, I'm doing this again, but this time not just because of video and maybe feedback or whatever. December 31st, 2020. Yes, 2020. I finished writing the final Behind the Smile saga story, which was well, anything actually. Um, the Behind the Smile saga is very broad. It is my life story, period. And I think it was maybe fall 2021. I decided to start rereading the whole entire series. Behind the Smile is hands down my biggest accomplishment in life, period. If you don't believe me, try again. I've written 2,000 pages of 15 stories in one giant saga. Behind the Smile, long story short, is about a guy who has Asperger's and depression, struggles with his sexuality, and has an imagination that threatens to kill him constantly. Each story is more fictional than the last. Each story is also a different format. Stories 1 through 6 are hopefully going to be a seasons to a TV series. 7 is a movie. 8 is a video game. 9 is a one special episode sort of a thing. 10, I think, is a 4-part comic book series, webisodes. I'm not quite sure. 11 is a favorite TV movie. 12 is a miniseries. 13 is a apocalyptic book. 14 is a prequel book. And finally, 15 is a giant multi-formatted mess, actually. Is really all I can call it. Today is January 25th, 2023. And I am going to get, anyway, I'm going to give a quick summary of the whole entire series, spending no more than 1 minute per story. This will be fun. Maybe even less. Yeah. So I finished rereading / reading the whole entire saga actually just about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, do the math. Almost a year and a half later. Fall 2021, fall 2022. Yeah. Anyway, so here we are now. So after finishing reading the final story, here's what I read in that 1.5 years' time. Behind the Smile, stories 1 through 6 is about a guy who has Asperger's and depression, struggles with his sexuality, and has an imagination that threatens to kill him constantly. Story number 1, or season 1 to a TV series, basically starts with the character of Nate in his final year of high school, as he has a crush on some guy who ends up being homophobic. And he's put in special education in his senior year of high school, of all things, and then suddenly finds this random guy in the middle of school with a gun. That's an imaginary guy, by the way. He drops out of high school to start Ealing High School, starts to have a friendship relationship with someone from church, and gets torn between whether he should be gay or not. And this friend he made at church says he used to be gay, but now he's not. While the imaginary character keeps telling him that he's in the middle of some war that is starting to brew of an alien race known as fundamentals. Okay, let's see here. Story number 2, season 2 of the series, basically tells the story of him graduating evening high school and his last days in evening high school. He has little crushes here and there in class. The war escalates. He starts to gain powers like electric and fire powers and things like that. His little mind probe droids start to invade his mind to make him think different things. He starts to see different demons as well. Crazy, isn't it? And finally, after a few months after graduating evening high school, he starts to try to live an independent life, but at the same time, his ginormous fundamental military base has been growing in size in the woods outside his house. He pretty much has no friends, unfortunately. But that all changes in season 3, as he meets friends like Paul and Larry and Casey, and he hangs out with them more and more. He also has his first kiss with a guy named Mason, and ends up having his first boyfriend with a guy named Mike. And when that doesn't work out, well, he ends up creating a character known as Josh. Not really creating, but suddenly seeing a character in his imagination who he ends up going out with. There's a lot less imaginary details in season 3 than season 2, until the end, when his arch enemy Agent suddenly appears, shoots Josh, the fundamental army surround Josh's house, attack Agent, and then both of them go comatose. Yeah. Meanwhile, Nate increases his friendships with his friends, and by season 4, oh, season 4, it's over here somewhere. By season 4, there is a 1 million man militia going completely around the world, a little bad time to wipe out all fundamental bases there all over the world. Agent and Josh are in this machine known as Bookworm, while Nate reads the book Rainbow Six by Tom Clancy, so technically they're in the middle of the book. Nate gains more friends like John and Jess and Mary and Robert and Nick, and this friendship circle gets bigger, but also gets smaller as a lot of drama ends up happening. Nate has a few more boyfriends. Nate goes to the psych ward. A lot of craziness happens all over season 4, but at the same time, it's just a large quality of craziness, or less quantity of small craziness. As crazy as that may sound to say. Meanwhile, by New Year's Eve, in the North Pole, so only one man survives the 1 million man militia, and he's proclaimed the Messiah. And by season 5, the imagined war, as it is being proclaimed, gets closer and closer to a climax, as most of it is just in America. It's closer and closer to the East Coast, and closer to where Nate lives on the Delmarva Peninsula. Meanwhile, Nate has a crush on a new guy named Shane, and when things don't go as planned, he almost shoots himself. But at the same time, cops surround the house, and later, with a new friend, Natalie, just jump ahead of there, yeah, right. She gets pregnant. All the way to the end of the year, she gives birth. Let's just jump to the end of the year, and the Imagined War concludes. Nate kills Asian. Josh dies from the Shiva virus after Rainbow Six is, of course, over. The Imagined War takes an epic conclusion, but it's extraordinarily violent for all that. And Nate and his parents and his brother lose their house to a flood. They had moved to a motel. And, well, I'm running out of time here. So let's see here. Just jump over to season 6, and Nate is living in motel life by season 6. And he's been going to community college for the past 2 years. Well, since after graduating high school. I want to say half a year after graduating high school, he's been going to Warwick Community College. But he wants to be a filmmaker, and Warwick's not really doing it for him. He lives an independent life, so he moves with his friend Casey to Princess Anne, then moves with his friend Sean, gets broken up with his next boyfriend, which is like his, 10th boyfriend by now. Time flies a little bit too much now, doesn't it? So, by season 6, he ends up finally moving to Baltimore. Has an independent life there with his 2 most recent exes and his best friend Larry, and starts a mass communications major at Community College of Baltimore County after moving to Dundalk. Which brings us to, oh my lord, Behind the Smile, Battle of Baltimore Breakdown, which is the movie. Things are about to go a lot slower now. There is a new character, a new antagonist, known as Christian the Assassin, who will stop at literally nothing to find and kill Nate. Out of vengeance for killing his arch enemy, actually role model, Agent. While Nate is starting with 5 classes at his first semester at CCBC, this is becoming a little bit too stressful, but is enjoying his new life. At the same time, things are becoming too stressful while he has two male crushes and a female crush. I just bypassed all the Christian stuff. Wow. Huh. Religious stuff, I mean. Christian ends up raising infernos all over Baltimore, and jump all the way to January 2011. Christian kills Nate. Or at least he would have if Christian was real. Nate just simply goes to the psych ward. In real life, Nate goes to a psych ward. He lost all his powers when the flood, and accessories, mostly accessories, when the flood happened. But throughout Behind the Smile Escape the World, which is a video game, a little bit at a time he gains all his imaginary powers and accessories all over again to basically train himself to become an assassin, to kill the assassin who tried to kill him in January. The training continues as he continues living independent life, a little bit at a time. Whew. And after so much training for a whole entire year, at least in the video game, we jump to Behind the Smile, Altering the Ending, which is a 1 hour long special episode going back to Back River Bridge, where Christian tried to kill Nate, and which would have been a suicide attempt in real life, but Nate didn't jump, and Christian wasn't real, so he couldn't kill him. 1 year exactly later, a whole entire battle ensues at the Back River Neck Bridge in Essex. And the Gateway, which is one of the accessories, brings back as many allies as possible. Nearly 1,000 allies and 1,000 enemy all fight in Essex. Nate makes his way to CCBC Essex and to the Avenue at White Marsh in White Marsh, where he finally goes to the median, shoots, stabs, shocks, slices, you name it, Christian as he dies, or so we think. Christian married a character known as Queen Amethyst. Amethyst has this amazing healing ability, and while being married to Queen Amethyst, he can't die. He's immortal. He just heals very, very slowly. Which brings us to the next story. And this is where the imaginary bits really take over. Drastically. Behind the Smile Year Zero Flashbacks of the Imagination is a made-for-TV movie, basically showing tons of flashbacks in dream format, but we don't know they're a dream until the very end. As we see Christian and his father, Agent, as they go through all of history, all the way to the time of Christ, as we see them, communing. They teleport from Middle East on Earth, in Christ's time, all the way to a planet known as Fundatanu. 1,500 years later, in Earth's time, Christian returns, portaling himself into Europe. Agent returns, leaving his name Akil behind when he went to the planet, by the way, which was his original name. Then he was renamed Agent. He returns, and then we also enter into a new character known as the Unknown Being. Behind the Smile, Black River Project Chemically Unbalanced, we talk about the Unknown Being and his history. And we also go, once again, all the way back in time to 2,000 years ago to see how he lived. These guys are immortal, aren't they? Christian and Agent have a slow agent serum. Zachariah, Unknown Being, spoiler alert by the way, has a very bizarre way of surviving so long. I'm not even quite sure. I don't remember, surprisingly enough. We go through him and Nate as we fly through the year 2012 and finally move into the 12th story, Behind the Smile 2012 Conclusion, which is a 4-part miniseries, as Christian, Queen Amethyst, and Gloria fight against Josh, Nate, and the Unknown Being. Okay, when you fly through the story this fast, who is Gloria? How's Josh alive again? Who is this Unknown Being? So many questions, so little time. Ask me later. Maybe I'll tell you. They all fight a little bad time. We lead up to the fight in the first 2 episodes. The 3rd episode, we finally get to the fight. We fight in the Baltimore. Everybody dies. Except for Agent, 2 of the militia, and one of the militia and one of the scouts. There were 9 of each. 9 scouts and 9 militia fighting against each other. And the Unknown Being. Then, the shepherding spacecraft, the fundamental ship that was hovering above Baltimore, left off, and when it did, it left a giant outbreak behind, killing everybody in sight. in Baltimore, except for the unknown being and one scout who survived unscathed. The outbreak expanded to a 250-mile radius around Baltimore City, and unknown being survived, ran as fast as he can, and 1 month later arrived in 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 Damascus, Virginia, where we began behind the smile what world we live in, which is the 7-part and apocalyptic book, which is pretty much all of this. Well, almost all of it. Yeah. I can't necessarily summarize the whole entire book in literally 1 minute. So I'm gonna give myself 45 more seconds or so to explain what happens in the end. That's all. So, unknown being, one of the most intelligent humans in existence, creates several different vials to try to change the past. Each vial, he ends up increasing his brain capacity, and by the 7th vial, well, he basically becomes God. But the thing is, each time he creates one of these vials, he can't control it because suddenly his brain capacity is happening so fast that when it becomes God, he destroys everything. And that's one of several reasons why the universe ended in the apocalyptic book. Well, there's more reasons than that, but we'll leave it at that one. And then, before we move on to the final story, there's the 14th story. Oh, that's right. Right here, that's the apocalyptic book. Right here, this is the 14th story, Behind the Small Origins, which is a prequel novella. 7 chapters, telling the story of all the imagined characters, the most significant imagined characters, from the creation of the Earth, which, according to Behind the Small mythology, was 7,000 years ago, up until the year 2021. Yeah, when the whole universe was gone. We go through what is known as 6 generations of evil, up until the Antichrist, the leader of the war leader, and the Antichrist's son. All 3 of those are in the apocalyptic book, and somehow all 3 of them actually are 3 of the generations of evil. One of which survived 2,000 years. You got an agent who, as the Antichrist, changed his name to Mahid in the apocalyptic book. We fly ahead all the way to Chapter 7, which is a journal of the Antichrist's son, who was the leader of the neo-Nazi rebellion, to find Nomasum. Nomasum is short for No More Smile. There is no story after this. Unknown being becomes God, and when he's finally able to control his ability of being God, he creates atoms. Those atoms will create a planet. That planet becomes a planet known as Zahari Elysia, and according to the narrative of Namazim, well, it's a whole new story. But there's only a beginning and an end to that story. That story goes through literally any format you can think of. Sculpture, painting, interpretive dance, all kinds of formats. But the long and the short of it is basically a super science fiction story. Yeah. Taking place in a different planet after this universe is destroyed, and there is, well, no more smile. Whew. That is the quickest nutshell to the whole entire Behind the Smile saga you may ever hear, and I may ever tell. Unfortunately, many of the most important, many of the most significant, many of the most relevant parts of the story I just left out by accident, like when I got kicked out of a church, or when I got beat up or punched in the face, let's not get excessive, by my roommate. Real life incidents, or when my grandmother died. Different, very significant and important events happened in my life and other people's lives as well, that when telling a nutshell like that, they just end up flying to the wayside by accident. But when there's that much story to tell, you really just can't wait to one day tell it. Now, I come to you, hoping you enjoyed that story, for lack of a better word. Behind the Smile, the complete saga, in a nutshell. Look forward to hopefully one day in the next 10 years, 5 years, year, the beginning of this being produced, and hopefully once the beginning is produced as a TV series, the rest of it will hopefully fall like a domino effect. Cross my fingers. Until then, well, expect greatness. Also, if you want to see anything that has been produced, 3 of my videos on this YouTube are behind the small videos of actual things that have actually been produced. A trailer and the opening scene to behind the small Battle of Baltimore breakdown, and the only non-violent scene, or at least non-violent scene, to behind the small 2012 conclusion, are both on my YouTube. Obviously, I won't be using stock footage. Oh, and most of my earliest videos on YouTube, about 16 in a row, all called A Day in the Life, are the original videos to a specific episode of Behind the Smile Season 4. It's titled A Day in the Life, so yeah. Or was that Season 3? Either way, that's a quick summary of Behind the Smile. Hope to see it more. Hope to see it all produced in the future. Hope you enjoyed.